So one of my favorite YouTube channels is the Peter Schiff Show. Peter Schiff has a podcast at least twice a week about current events and how to invest for it. And he digests what's going on in our society, not just about investing. He made a video one time. My favorite was when he talked about when we added Juneteenth as a holiday to our calendar. He talked about various historical events and how they would play out today. He had some viewpoints on how to solve equality issues. But I like to call him the Peter Shit Show because of how dire some of the predictions are. And I think it's really a coincidence that his name sounds like that. I think he named the show the Peter Schiff Show to make people think that. I really do, because of all the things you can name a talk show. But anyways, I was reading a comment today and I responded to it, and it didn't get very widely received by people watching this show. Unfortunately, a lot of people have a terrible time with investment mentality, and I thought of an analogy to respond to this with. So, one of Peter Schiff's subscribers had posted a comment saying they agree that gold is good for the long term, but they're being discouraged by what's been going on recently, and what's a good way to get some short-term profits. Gotta point out something, that's an oxymoron. Now, do I have a problem with people doing things that bring a little bit of short-term pleasure? No, I don't. Building wealth just doesn't happen to be one of them. That's it. That's all there is to it. If you want short-term stuff and you want to feel good in the short term, do something else, right? For me, I love to write computer games. Tomorrow I have a computer Olympiad competition, and that I can instantly feel good about, whether I win or I lose, right? Now, it reminded me when I was 13 years old, I thought when I grow up I could make a living counting cards at the casino. I used to be really good with numbers, and I downloaded a computer program to simulate blackjack so that I could practice card counting. And I actually got really good at it. Not fast enough to actually do it at a casino. I actually got pretty good at it. I distinctly remember the software because when you would lose your hand and the computer would say, "Dealer wins," and a hand would reach out to grab your chips, it became a very annoying sound, the "dealer wins" sound. I distinctly remember the way the computer pronounces it. Now, later on I learned that there are a number of hurdles to counting cards. The number one hurdle is you need a big bankroll to do it, because there's a lot of fluctuations, right? You might fluctuate $100,000 up and down, and you might make like $100 an hour, right? So just to make $100 an hour, you needed like 100,000, maybe even more, like $1 million in the bank. And that's a big hurdle, because most people who have $1 million in the bank have other ways to make $100 an hour, right? That's the big hurdle. Now, having said that, there are people, actually lots of them, who play blackjack at a casino for short-term pleasure, right? Not to make a long-term profit, right? And as long as you can handle that, you don't have a religious problem with that. I don't have a problem with that either, right? But profiting and short-term just don't go together. I mean, do something else for short-term pleasure and invest for the long term. It's really that simple.